Hello viewers! Today we're going to work on this BMW E46 M3. So the story behind the car is that the engine has developed some strange knocking sounds on idle. I'm not sure it's only on idle, we're going to check it. And the owner took the car to, I'm not sure, probably the dealership, and they told him that they have changed some chain tensioner or something like that. And from then on the car is triggering the check engine light, and yeah, the noise is still there, they haven't fixed it, but now we have a check engine light. And yeah, I have checked the fault codes, and we have a fault code for crankshaft and camshaft synchronization, plus I believe crankshaft code only, something like that. And as we saw, the car is starting, so probably they haven't timed the engine correctly, so we're going to check that for sure. But because of the engine noise, I'm directly going to start opening up the engine to see what is happening inside. But if it was only the fault code for the crankshaft and the camshaft sensors, I was going to take a capture with the scope and going to see the correlation. I was going to compare it with some known good, because we have one more S54 in the shop. So I was going to compare it with this engine, which doesn't have issues like this. Because we have a noise in the engine, I'm going to directly start disassembling the rocker cover. Okay, so inside the shop, I'm waiting the diagnostic tool to connect to the ECM, and let me show you the fault codes. So, okay, read fault codes. So here it is, signal camshaft sensor exhaust side, and this is the thing that I'm worrying most about, camshaft sensor synchronization to crankshaft, which I believe is because of some bad timing, I guess, after the job that previous shop have done. I'm going to directly start disassembling and see what is happening. It's not so hard to check the timing on this engine. I'm just going to need to disassemble a little bit the fan coach, the diffuser, the rocker cover, so to gain access to the crankshaft pulley and to be able to install the bridge over the both camshafts. Okay, so I have disassembled a little bit the engine. As you can see, the rocker cover is out, and have disassembled some other stuff, not because it was required, but because I have talked to the owner and we have discussed that he wants to do some other things than the things that I told you. Just to quickly show you that our suspicions were right. Right now the timing pin for the crankshaft is inserted in the crankshaft pulley, and once again I'm using the OEM tools from BMW. This is the part number from the crankshaft pulley. And this is the OEM bridge which is locking the camshafts. So I'm just going to insert once again to lock the pulley. And if we take a closer look on the top, on the camshafts, as we can see, it's not impossible to fit this hole on the intake camshaft, but still I cannot press it fully here because it has small angle. If we take a look on the exhaust side, as we can see, it's going to be impossible to fit the pin there. It's too much tilted to the intake side, so it's going to be impossible to fit the tool there. So for sure the engine is not timed correctly. We can retime it, but before that the owner wants to see what is happening inside the engine. He haven't changed the Conrod bearings, never, so he wants to check them. And also I'm going to check some other stuff which are known issues on this engine, especially all the timing components. That's why I'm going to remove the timing cover and the open. And yeah, actually I have checked the clearances on the valves, and still they are not in spec, and they're going to need redoing. So I'm going to redo the valve clearances. Okay, so just to show you what have I found out, I have removed several things. So here are the gears for the Vanos. Here is the Vanos unit. As you can see, as usual, let me see where it was. The bolt kits on the exhaust side for the pump are still in good condition, they haven't broke down. I have saw that he have replaced this tensioner, but I don't see any brand on it, so probably some Chinesium. So I'm going to advise him to install OEM one. Yeah, this is the guide which has some wear on it. But the biggest issue that I have found out is here inside. So I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it, but as we can see down here, this here broke down. So yeah, right now the chain, let me try to, it's going to be a little bit hard with one hand. But yeah, when I remove everything you're going to see it, but for sure this guide is broke down. Probably that's why the owner had some noises coming out from the engine. Okay, so I pretty much disassembled everything, the open, the front axle and stuff. Here are the bearings, the big can bearings, and yeah, they're pretty sure for changing, as we can see on this, on the first Conrod. So we have from 1 to 6, and yeah, the first ones, as we can see the copper getting out of the edges of the bearing. Yeah, probably this is the worst one. Which one? Yeah, we have one more here. This is the 6th bearing, and I wanted to be sure that we don't have issues with the main bearings, as most of the 6-cylinder engines of BMW, the older one at least. So this is one of it. I have removed 2 main caps just to confirm that the bearings are fine. As usual, they have no issues at all. The case with the big bearings is not the same. So yeah, we're going to need to replace them, but as we can see, the Conrods are using the old style bolts, which are M11, and yeah, BMW is not producing these bolts anymore, so we're going to need to use ARP bolts. If these bolts were M10, which are the newer style Conrods for this engine, BMW is selling the newer type of bolts, but these ones you cannot find them anywhere. So that's why we're going to install the ARP one, so to be able to replace the bolts, and probably we're going to use the ESL bearings. We're going to combine 2 sets of them, so to increase just a small amount the clearance of the bearings. We're going to need to replace the guides of the timing chains, the sprocket. Yeah, this here broke down. This is the piece of it. Yeah, this is a really common issue. This breaks down first. As we can see, it broke down from here. Probably that's why the owner had some noises coming out of the engine. We have some small damage on this guide also. You're going to ask yourself how you have managed to remove the guides without removing the cylinder head. As you can see, hopefully you guys can see, the cylinder head is still in place. I haven't removed it. I know BMW is saying that you need to remove the cylinder head, so to be able to remove these guides and change them, but this is not the case. I'm going to give you some hack how to do it. So on the bigger guide, you're going to need to undo this guiding sleeve for the guide. So you're going to be able to undo it while the guide is installed its place. So I have undone it, and I managed to remove this. So when you undo it, you're going to be able to slide it out from the cylinder head, and after that, with little bit of struggle, you're going to be able to remove the other guide with little bit of curving. But no, you're not going to be able to remove this guide here, because this guide here, this is the other guide. It's also a nozzle, oil nozzle, which is lubricating the guide and lubricating the chain, and that's why this guide has much more longer thread. So yeah, you're not going to be able to remove it. The thread size is at least double than this one, so the guide is not going to be able to bend so much, so to be able to remove this thread from the block. So the only way to do it, you first need to undo this, remove the guide, and after that, with a little bit maneuvering on the other guide, you're going to be able to remove it also this one, and you're going to be able to replace everything without removing the cylinder head. So it's much more easier in my opinion. So yeah, we're going to replace the chain, the guide of the oil pump. We're going to see, probably we're going to rebuild the Vanos. Yeah, because the pump is on roughly 11 years old, we're going to replace it. I know it's still fine, but we don't want to risk it, so we're going to replace the pump. So I don't know how many days later or months, but finally almost everything came up, except one timing chain and one oil pump disc. But I'm going to start assembling it little by little. So just to show you what we're going to use and install. ARP bolts, once again, because this engine is running M11 bolts and you cannot go anything else than ARP bolts, because BMW have decided that they're not going to produce anymore the M11 type of bolt for this Conrod. So that's why we are going with ARP, and the part number is this. Which one was? Sorry, the part number is this here. We're going to use, let me show you what, where it was. So we're going to use this for tightening it up. We're going to use a stretch gauge indicator. We're not going to use a torque spec for it. I have a really detailed video about this, and I'm going to put it in the description below. But we're going to measure how much the bolt is going to stretch up, and by that we're going to determine when we need to stop torquing up the bolt. So that's why we're going to use this, and as you can see, it's ARP. This is the bearings that we're going to use. Once again, ESL. We're going to use two types of bearing. The standard size, and the other size is going to be plus 0.025 millimeters. So we're going to increase the total clearance on the Conrod bearings with 0.012 millimeters, because we're going to install only one bearing of this, so we need to divide this by 2. So yeah, this is the bearings, some bolts. This is for the main bearings, because I have removed 2 caps to check the bearings, they were fine. This is for the crankshaft pulley. This was, this is for the O pump, because one of the bolts tripped up and I want to replace it with new one. Some O-rings, I don't remember all of them where they go, I'm going to check. Yeah, I'm going to change the hydraulic pump pulley because it's broke down, so I want to install a fresh new pulley. This is the bolts for the gears on the camshafts. Also this, the updated bolts, the old ones is hex type, and this is Torx type bolts, head bolt. So yeah, we're going to change them with the new type. This is the valve cover gasket. Yeah, it's not OEM, but everything should be fine. This is for the coils. This is the front crankshaft seal. Here once again the Vanos kit. This is the O-rings. This is for the rattle. We're going to install a brand new OEM crankcase ventilation valve. This is the gasket for the Vanos unit, as you can see here. And here the timing components. This is actually we have 5 guides in total. This one is for the O pump chain. This is the O pump chain actually. Yeah, this is the 4 guides for the main timing chain. This is the crankshaft gear, as we can see. Actually this was kind of hard to be found, but I managed to find it OEM new. This is the tensioner. As I told you previously, the owner installed INA, I believe, but I want to go with the OEM one, so to be sure that everything is going to be fine. The only thing that have not arrived is the main timing chain, which I'm still waiting. I'm not sure where it goes. I'm trying to find it, but it still doesn't want to come. We're going to figure it out. The open gasket. This is the new water pump, OEM one, as you can see here. So this is how it looks, the new OEM pump. Where is the logo? Yeah, here's the logo. That is OEM unit. We're going to replace it, so to be sure that the car is going to be reliable as much as possible. Some really expensive gaskets. This is for the timing chain cover. This is for the Vanos unit. This is for the water pump, and this is for the open cap or something like that, which is some kind of filter. Some of these gaskets are bizarrely expensive, but I guess because it's S54 and these gaskets can be used only there, and probably they have done much more less quantity than on these engines. This is M54, which is much more often seen. As you can see, we have 2 of them. There is one more there. So this engine are much more often seen, and the S54 probably has much less quantities of them, and that's why these are kind of expensive. If I'm not mistaken, every single gasket here, except this for the water pump, is somewhere around 30-35 euro, something like that. And this was, I think, 70 euro or 80 euro, which is, yeah, BMW kind of bizarre for this thing, but we want to not have oil leaks after all. So yeah, pretty much almost everything is OEM, at least the important things that I want to be OEM, because if you have some leak from here, it's not going to be end of the world. You're not going to break your engine, but if some of these components fail, It's going to be kind of expensive to fix it. And yeah, this gasket also, because if you start leaking from here, from the gasket of the timing chain cover, it's kind of hard to fix this, because you need to remove a lot of components, so to be able to replace these gaskets once again. Wow, this for the valve cover is much more easier to be redone. So yeah, pretty much this is it. All the parts that we're going to install. Yeah, only the timing chain, we need to wait for it. And yeah, actually I need to wait for the oil pump disc. Here are all the parts which I'm storing. So the oil pump disc on the Vanos unit, which sits here, we are just redrilling the holes so to reduce the play on the exhaust side of the Vanos camshaft, because as we know, here originally it has a lot of rattle on this oil pump disc, so I want to reduce this, because if I leave it with this swag, with 1mm swag, it's possible to break down the hub of the exhaust camshaft. So that's why I want to reduce it to 0.1mm. Okay, so the both bearings, once again ACL, just to show the difference between them, because once again one is plus 0.025. Hopefully the camera is going to catch it up. Yeah, as we can see, here it is 0.025, and on the other one we don't have this numbering, it's just STD. So pretty much on the Conrod itself I'm going to install the standard size bearing, and on the cap I'm going to install the oversized bearing, which once again should increase the clearance with 0.012. So here is where I keep all the caps sorted with the old bearings. Here are the bolts, the ERP bolts. I'm trying to sort them up 2 by 2. I want to be close to each other by length. Most of them are different lengths, and I'm trying to use as close as possible length, because it's a little bit easier to tighten them up with the stretch gauge. But pretty much this is what ERP have provided. We should stretch up the bolts to between 0.075 to 0.008. This should be roughly around 100 Newton meters, but they recommend 70 foot-pounds, which I forget how much it was, probably 95 Newton meters, I forget. But yeah, we're not going to use this, we're going to use the stretch gauge. But the first torquing is going to be to check the clearance with the plastic gauge, and after that is going to be the final torque, if the clearance is okay. We are done with the first 2 bearings on cylinder number 2 and cylinder number 5. Pretty much, so to be able to stretch the bolts enough, we were needed to torque down the bolts to 108, 110 Newton meters, so to be able to stretch them to the spec which ERP provides, which is much more further from the recommended torque spec, but doesn't matter. So let me show you what is the clearance right now on these 2 journals. So this is on cylinder number 2 journal, and it is somewhere around 0.038 millimeters. And if we go along on cylinder number 5, the journal of cylinder number 5 is with little bit bigger clearance, so bigger than 0.050, smaller than 0.038. So probably it's going to be somewhere around 40, 42, something like that. Yeah, now I'm going to put assembly loop on the bearings on the top and on the cap. Going to once again tighten the bolts with the stretch gauge, and pretty much this is going to be. Okay, I think I found out why cylinder number 2 journal had little bit smaller clearance than the cylinder number 5. As you can see, the bearing, something got trapped while I was torquing the cap. I don't know how. So I don't know how this got inside between the journal and the Conrod, because I cleaned up everything as good as possible, but I guess some things like this happen. So yeah, I'm going to remove it. It's going to make small sound. Actually, we're going to have additional bearings, so I'm going to replace this with a new one. But probably that's why we had a little bit more clearance here. So yeah, things like this happen from time to time. Okay, so I have measured cylinder number 3 and 4 just to show you the clearance. So let me zoom in a little bit. Once again, around 0.050. So perfectly where it's supposed to be, because let me show you the spec which BMW recommends. So here it is, radial Conrod bearing play between 0.30 and 0.70. So we are right in the middle where we're supposed to be, in my opinion. Let me show you the bearing which we have some damage on it. So this is the bearing which I removed and I have replaced. It was grooved, so for sure I'm going to replace it. And yeah, now the spec on journal number 2 is 50 once again. The clearance, not the spec. So yeah, just a bad luck, I guess. Now I'm going to continue with the other two journals, and if I see something different than what we have seen until now, I'm not going to film it. I'm just going to continue with the next interesting step. But yeah, pretty much I'm putting this assembly lubrication, putting this assembly loop. I'm using this in my case, doesn't matter. And yeah, tightening it up to roughly 110 Newton meters until I get the enough stretch which the ARP provides. Okay, so I decided to open up the oil pump and see what's happening inside, and it doesn't look very promising. So let me show you. It has a pitting pretty much everywhere. So as we can see here, so yeah, on this cover once again we have some dots everywhere on the body. So something have been happening inside. Also on the stator, it's going to be a little bit hard to see, but once again we have some pittings almost everywhere. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good idea if we replace the oil pump, just to be on the safety side. Because the other thing which is really common failure point on these pumps is this relief valve, pressure relief valve, which is on the side. I know you can buy this separately from some performance company. OEM wise, you cannot find it and you cannot replace it because of these dots everywhere. Also on this body here we have some dottings, as you can see they are pretty much everywhere. Probably it's going to be a good idea if we replace this oil pump, because yeah, I don't like how it looks like. Meanwhile, I'm going to continue with refreshing the refreshing of the Vanos with Beisan kit, little by little, to get somewhere, because as I told you guys, this car is getting a lot of time to find everything and repair it. Okay, pretty much I'm almost done with the Vanos unit. The only thing that I'm waiting is the oil pump disc, as I told you. I tried to clean it as good as possible because it was looking disgusting. Only where I did not clean it is here, because I didn't want to contaminate the needle bearing inside. So yeah, I did not put any degreaser or something like that inside. I just cleaned the body. I have changed the O-rings inside here, also on the pistons, as we can see, brand new O-rings from Beisan. Here also the O-rings are changed also on this valve, plus on these two caps here. Yeah, I have serviced with the rattle kit these two helical gears. Yeah, this is the other one, so they are kind of snug now. It should not rattle. And the only thing that left is to clean up the valve body, the coil body. So I'm going to disassemble it, and with a magnet I'm going to try to clean it as good as possible. And pretty much this is going to be with the Vanos unit, so I'm going to continue when I assemble the timing chains. So a few days later, the new oil pump came. Genuine BMW oil pump. This is it. It comes without the gear for it, but we won't use the old one. I'm just going to replace the nut for it, which is on the front. Yeah, this is it. I'm going to fill it as much as possible with some oil. I bought new dowel pin for the crankshaft gear, and yeah, this is the main chain which finally came up. This is how it looks like. And this is the Vanos gear, which now is modified. As we can see, we have two additional holes, which is for tighter tolerance with these teeth of the camshaft gear. So this is the hub of the exhaust camshaft, which should have smaller play. Now with one hand it's going to be a little bit hard to show you, but for sure we have smaller play here because originally we have 1 mm of clearance, and right now with the new holes we're going to have 0.1 mm. Okay, so the both pumps, the new one and the old one, there is some little bit of difference. As we can see here, they have decided to drill this here and after that block it with some cap. As we can see here, we don't have this one. And on the bottom, just to quickly show you the difference, as we can see here, we have once again some hole which they have done probably to reduce somehow the pressure, and as we can see here we don't have it. So there is some small amount of difference in the design. Probably it's for a upgrade purpose, so it's not a bad idea to change your oil pumps, guys, especially on these M engines. So yeah, now I'm going to assemble it and we're going to continue. Okay, so little by little I'm installing the timing components. I have changed the bolts on the camshafts. Here are the old ones. This is the old design which I showed you. I have replaced on the other side, and pretty much all the guides are installed with the new crankshaft gear. And yeah, right now it's kind of hard to show the oil pump, but I'm going to show you after that. All the components are installed except the exhaust hub, which is this one. So I'm going to install it now with brand new bolts once again, which are not so mandatory to be changed, but the mandatory thing is this bolts to be changed with the new design. The biggest struggle is going to be to clean up the old silicone which the previous shop have put all everywhere, so it's a terrible job to be cleaned up. So I don't know why some shops are doing this, but yeah, big thumbs down for them. The good old sweet spot. Only with one hand, and the exhaust one. Once again, this is rotated as much as possible clockwise, and yeah, this is the sweet spot. So yeah, I have tightened up the crankshaft, the bolts of the crankshaft. Right now the crankshaft is locked on top dead position, and I have locked up the both camshafts on the top, so pretty much the engine is timed up. I just need to install the Vanos, which I have serviced up, and yeah, just to show you, for some strange reason we are missing some piece from this regulator valve, which is installed on the side of the valve body here. I have cleaned up the filter, but I have changed the O-rings, but we are missing one small piece underneath the O-ring. It should be some plastic white thing like a spacer which is holding the O-ring upwards like that, but without it the O-ring can't move everywhere. So not sure it is going to cause any issues, hopefully not. So I'm going to install it. If we have some strange things happening with the Vanos, which I doubt, I'm going to tell the owner that it's a good idea to change this, because this white spacer here is not sold separately. You need to buy the whole valve together. Actually, I had some issue with the valve block. On most of the S54s, you're going to need just a normal magnet, so to turn up these valves here, because you need a magnet to open them up and close them up, so to be able to clean up all the galleries inside this block. But in this case it was pretty much impossible, so yeah, I needed to buy a really strong magnet, which is here. So this is the magnet which I got, which is really strong. This was the only way to be able to move these valves inside. So yeah, probably is gunked up. So I doubt that this was working really properly. Okay, so pretty much I'm ready to install the open. Just to show the new oil pump installed with the new chain. The nut is torqued to 25 Nm reverse thread. I have put some thread locker on it. Okay, so little bit of update. I have installed the open with the cap here with new gasket, but unluckily it turns out that the bolt here, which goes to the crankshaft rear seal is a little bit stripped up, so I needed to use a longer bolt to be able to torque to 10 Nm this bolt. But yeah, if this doesn't hold good, the owner is going to need to change the rear seal, because the rear seal is going with the body itself, which the thread goes here in. So to repair this thread, the proper way to do it is to change the whole main seal with the body and everything. We're going to see that how it is. And yeah, here we have one more ruined thread on the steering rack, so I'm going to try to repair this, so to be able to hold this holes in place. But pretty much I have assembled the rack, the control arms, the front axle, everything. I have replaced the gear on the hydraulic pump, new O-rings on the oil cooler. Now I'm going to continue with the installation of the water pump with adjustment of the valve shims, which is going to be a really picky job. I managed to clean up all the silicone on the top of the cylinder head, which was a terrible job. This is probably the hardest thing which I have done on this car. Actually, I forget to show you the oil drain plug. Previously it was M12 and the thread was totally stripped out and the drain plug was not holding, so it was dripping oil from here. So I go from M12 to M14. Just bought a oil drain plug like this one, which has internal hex head, or I don't know how it's called. But as we can see, we have room here, so it's not touching it and it's kind of easy to remove it. Yeah, for sure it's going to hold. This is from, I believe, some French car, I forget which it was. The thread is M14 by 1.25, so I think it's going to be fine. Hopefully they're not going to strip down this thread also, so hopefully. So pretty much I'm done with the adjustment of the valves. I'm using this shim kits on Wiseco, and once again, one wasn't enough. You're going to need at least 2 kits like this, so to be able to adjust your valves properly. Most of the time you're going to need one size, and from one size you're going to get only 3 of them, and for sure it's not going to be enough. At least 2 kits like this one, to be sure that you're going to be able, actually in the perfect case you're going to need 3, because on my engine I needed 3 kits like this, because in the last valves I needed one more shim, which I didn't have, because I need 7 from one size, and in the end of the day I didn't have it. I have installed a new water pump with the pulley and everything else. So just wanted to show you the rocker arms. So hopefully you guys are going to be able to see, but for sure we have some wear on them. So naturally this should be smooth and around, but in our case it's getting squared. So probably on camera it's going to be really hard to understand me, guys, but for sure these rocker arms are really weared out, but for sure they are not so curved as they used to be, like brand new ones. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out. Probably the engine is not going to sound so quietly with these rocker arms looking like that. So yeah, in the perfect case scenario we're going to need to replace those. This repair is getting so long that probably I'm going to talk to the owner, but probably we're going to do it next year or something like that, because you know how it goes. You are getting tired of some cars, waiting parts and waiting and waiting. Things are popping up all the time, and now I need to remove everything once again, the Vanos unit and the chains and everything, so to be able to remove the rocker arm shafts, so to replace the rocker arms. So yeah, it kind of sucks, but this is what it is. I'm just going to continue with the adjustment. I'm going to do them with little bit smaller clearance on the smaller side. This means 0.28 millimeters on the exhaust side and 0.18 on the intake side, or close to that as possible, not on the higher clearance, which is 33 and 23 on the intake and on the exhaust. So hopefully it's not going to be so loud when we started it up. Okay, so pretty much almost everything assembled, at least the important things. I have cranked up the engine so to gain some oil pressure without the spark plugs, so to protect the Conrod bearings, and I think it should have filled up all the oil galleries. So I have installed the spark plugs, installed the coils, and now I'm going to give it a try to see how it's going to run. So finger crossed that everything is going to be fine. I have filled up the engine with good old AMSOIL 550. I am running the same oil on my S54, which I'm truck using, and I don't have any issues. So yeah, let's give it a try. I have to hook up the battery. So it's going to be a little bit hard because I need to hold the brake. So actually I'm going to put you guys on a stand. Okay, it was a little bit rough because of the initial crank-up, because it was sprayed some fuel inside and until it burns out. But now it's smoothing it up. So yeah, it's running smooth. But don't pull it making some noise. So I'm going to turn it off because we don't have coolant inside. And one tensioner later. Sounds much quieter. So I'm going to continue with the rest of the assembly. I have filled up the coolant. I have pretty much, we're almost ready. So pretty much everything assembled back together. I'm going to start it up to show you how it runs. As we saw, the rocker arms were kind of wear out, as the camshafts a little bit. So you're going to ask me, guys, if you replace these rocker arms, is the engine going to get quieter? But with these engines you never know. Yeah, it's a little bit warm right now. Oops, I need to go to neutral. Yeah, I need to figure out the issue with the airbag system. So I'm going to get this rid of it after that, but this is not related to this video. Right now the car running smooth, and for some reason now I can hear some noise from the alternator, which comes and goes. So yeah. Now it's not, you cannot hear it from time to time, it appears, but it's from the alternator for sure. But rather than that, the engine runs smooth. It runs quite as possible in my opinion. I have made the clearance at the minimal point of the spec on the, the valve adjustments. If we replace the rocker arms and the camshafts, probably this engine can get quieter than this. Still, I cannot say for 100%. Because I have never seen an engine like this with brand new rocker arms and new camshafts. Probably mine is going to be the first one, because I'm going to replace them with shrink cams plus the rocker arms, and I'm going to hear how quiet it can get. So I think this engine is good as it can get. So okay guys, I'm going to end up the video here. This was all about the servicing on this S54 engine. You saw all the issues that we have found out inside this engine. Let me show you what mileage is right now. So the engine is at 248,000 kilometers. The owner told me that he has this car for 16 years, something like that. I am not sure how many kilometers, but he told me that he have never changed the Conrod bearings before and the chains and stuff. This is a lot of time. Okay guys, this was all about this video. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.